Hey guys, this is Jim, WT1W, and you're watching FEP Labs Radio. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. So today I want to do a test on the Denco battery that I built in my last three videos. This is a 5.5 amp hour battery from Denco. Isn't it beautiful? And it's official because it has a sticker and a label on it. So this is a nice little kit, and you can get these at denco.enterprises, and I'll put a link in the description below. So what I want to do in this video is hook this up to the CBA5, the Computerized Battery Analyzer version 5. You've seen videos from other people on this thing. The analyzer will hook up to a battery, and it supports pretty much any kind of battery they make. And it will run a test or series of tests to show you all sorts of parameters and data about your battery. What we're going to do in this one is the discharge test is what they call it, the capacity test, and we're going to see what this looks like. And so here's the Denco battery, and here's our CBA5. And I'll do a video in the future on this device in particular, probably later this week or next week. This is the CBA5. It has a 25 amp fuse. It has an LED to tell you that it's talking to your PC correctly. And then it's got two power poles for connection to whatever battery source you're going to run with it. The device communicates, I'm holding it up to the wrong camera. The device communicates via USB. All right, pretty straightforward. So we are going to hook up our battery. So the battery is now hooked up. So here's the basic application, and we're going to get this thing set up real quick. We have a list of CBA devices, and this is the only one I have, and it is connected. So now that we've got our device picked out, we can tell it that we want to do a test, and we're going to tell it new test. And then it gives us this screen here. And these are the tests that we can run without buying any additional software licensing. So we're going to do the discharge test. One of the first things you need to do is tell it what kind of battery you've got. And we have a LiFePO4 battery. You can also tell it detect. And because this is a LiFePO, it will pick up what kind of battery it is. Interestingly enough, it didn't pick up the rated capacity, so we're going to set that. And it is 4 cells. I don't care about the weight, and the age of this battery is about a week old, so we'll call it 0.25 months. And now our test is set up and ready to go. And it is now running. I didn't mean to click the go button that fast. It's going to put a 1 amp load on this battery, and then we're going to see how long we can maintain workable voltage with a 1 amp load on a 5.5 amp hour battery. Spoiler alert, this should last about 5 hours at a 1 amp draw. If we go and test at 1C, which for this battery would be about 6 amps, we can expect a 6-hour runtime. So that's about it. Until the test is done, we're going to let the software run here, and I will report back with some results on the Denco battery. All right, guys, our tests have finished now, and I have the results up here on the screen where we can take a look at the data. The first thing I want to point out is when the test finished here, you can see that we got a message that said the test is complete, and it gives us a summary of our data, and it tells us that we got 5.645 amp hours out of the battery. We actually got a little higher. I'll talk about that in a second. 102% of its rated capacity of 5.5 amp hours. So that's great. This battery passes. It meets its specification. That translates into 72.2 watt hours, and our test ran 135 minutes and 29 seconds. That's what that screen shows. This pops up when the test finished. So now looking at our test data, we had a little glitch. I started the test here, and this ran for 10 minutes, and then someone's knee whacked the USB cable and knocked it loose from the computer. So I had to start the test over. So I was running at 1 amp here, and you can see our summary of this test when the device got disconnected. The battery didn't get disconnected. The CBA did, which cut off the test effectively. We had used this much current and made this many watt hours of power. We ran for 10 minutes at basically 1 amp. So I restarted the test, and I thought, I don't want this to run for 6 hours at 1 amp. We're going to bump this thing up. I ran the test at 2.5 amps, which would get us done in about 2 hours, give or take. So our test started, and as you go along here, So this is our second run where I restarted the test at 2.5 amps current draw. And we start up here and you see this initial drop where the load came on, the battery analyzer fired up and started to pull 2.5 amps of current. And we have this short little drop here. And then our voltage, and that's what this horizontal line is voltage here. Our voltage stayed pretty good all the way until the battery was almost completely exhausted. So right here is 12 volts, this line here, and here's 11 volts. So we start out at 13, and when we're about 72 minutes into the test, we've now started to poach below 13 volts, somewhere in here, more like 80, about 55 minutes in. We dropped down to 12.9 volts. At 72 minutes, we're down to 12.904. And here at 95 minutes, we're down to 12.7. This will still run your radio. Here at 120 minutes, we're down to 12.5 volts. Now this is getting to where things might start getting a little sketchy. It depends on your radio. It depends on what your power settings are. Can you run your radio at 10 or 20 watts with 12.5 volts? Yes, you probably can. If you got a 100-watt radio cranked to 11, it's probably going to cause that voltage to drop, and that may make the radio flake out and turn itself on and off all the time. And then you can see here that our voltage starts dropping pretty significantly fairly quickly. This is at 120 minutes in the test, and this is at 135 minutes in the test. So this represents 15 minutes here where we went from 12.5 volts down to 10.9 volts, which is not going to run most radios at all. So that's the cool thing about LifePose, is that that voltage stays up and stays up and stays up. And then when it decides it is going to drop, it's a fairly quick curve. And you can see that here, 15 minutes to go from probably still functional to not going to do anything for you. And then here's our final test results. We got 5.645 amp hours out of the battery, which is great. And that comprised 72.29 watt hours. In the test ran for 135.4 minutes at 2.5 amps of current draw. So this battery meets Dennis's specs of 5.5. Another follow-up I may want to do is run this test with different current draws. Now, obviously, with a higher current draw, the test won't last as long. If I run this at 5 amps of current draw, this test is going to run about an hour. If I run this at 1 amp of current draw, this test is going to run about 6 hours. But in the end result, the curve is going to look about like it is on the screen right up there. It's not going to be significantly different. The difference will be the time, the total time of the test. We'll have that excellent voltage, and then we'll still have that super sharp curve that you can see over here on the right side of the screen. So I may go back and retest this. Where I would be curious to see is if we get any different numbers for our total amp hours before the battery management system cuts us off. In any case, guys, I'll put a link for the Denco Enterprises website in the description below. I'm pretty pleased with the battery. I think this is a great kit. If you've never built a battery, this is a great starter kit to do it. Easy to do, shouldn't take you more than an hour total. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for today. If you would, make sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We recently reached 4,000 subscribers. Thank you, every one of you who has subscribed and has stuck with this channel as it grows. I appreciate it very much. And make sure to ring the bell so you get notified whenever I post any new content. Thanks, guys. 73.